Hello and welcome to Insiders, a podcast all about the world of television with me, Jimmy Mulville.
And me, Peter Fincham.
This is a podcast of people who love TV and who want to know a bit more about what goes on behind the scenes in show business. Well, we've got to start, haven't we, with a sad piece of news. Prunella Scales, the famous actress, has died this week, aged 93.
Wow.
Because she's most famous for playing Sybil in Fawlty Towers.
I thought she was most famous for acting with you, Jimmy, in a play.
Well, I'm sorry you brought this up. I was trying to get through this podcast, but it's an amusing tale of failure. Now, when I was a young man, as you know, Peter, I was trying to be an actor, and I was working with Mel Smith and Griff Rhys-Jones on it was called The Last Smith and Jones in those days, and then you took it over and took the alas off.
Yes, he was a great innovator like that.
You're just a kind of rebel. I think it's probably something to do with the amount of type and the money it costs, I guess. It's like a pruning.
Exactly. It was a cost-cutting exercise. I thought if I take 4 letters off the title, this will somehow improve the margins.
And the reason why it's called Last Smith and Jones was in those days, there's a very famous cowboy series called Alias Smith and Jones. So I guess that's why. Anyway.
Yeah. Even then, that was quite an esoteric reference.
Yes.
It has to be said.
And this conversation's even more so.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got offered a part in a play, and it was a farce in more ways than one, as it turned out, written by Bamber Gascoigne.
Everything about this is improbable.
So,
Bamber Gascoigne, again, for our younger listeners, was the presenter for many, many, many years of University Challenge.
He was wonderful, and he was such a nice man, and he had been the youngest theatre critic of The Observer, and he'd written a play. So the gamekeeper was becoming a poacher, and it was called Big in Brazil, and its premise was it was a Feydeau-esque farce. Feydeau, the great French farceur, and Feydeau, the character, was actually the central character in the play. And all the bad things that happened to his characters in his plays was now going to happen to him in this hotel in Brazil. And I played the hotel manager and his twin brother, and Tim West played an impresario and a Spanish waiter.
Were you the sort of Basil Fawlty of it then? If you were the hotel manager?
Yeah, I was a kind of Spanish. You were
sort of Basil Fawlty mixed with Manuel, possibly.
A little bit. I wish. But what happened was we enjoyed doing it, and Prue Scales was playing the young ingenue, and in those days she must have been in her middle years, but it's a stage play, so you can carry these things off. And Tim West was her impresario who took her down to Brazil to play in the hotel in Manaus. Anyway, the point of this long-winded story, which I'm surprised if it makes the edit, is that
we touched a lot of bases in the first 5 minutes.
Mel Smith said, "Dye your hair black," and I had strawberry blonde in those days, and so I dyed my hair black. He said, "This play's going to run for years, and you'll need to dye hair black because you're in Brazil, and then wear a wig for the twin brother." I said, "Okay, fine." Well, the play ran for 6 weeks. But Prue Scales and
what was she like to work with?
They were both fantastic people. I'd never done a play like that before. Stage of the Old Vic. I was very, very nervous, and they was very, very funny. I mean, and of course, actors when they're together and they're not rehearsing, they tell anecdotes to each other.
Yes.
So I had a lot of,
as you just have.
I have,
to be fair,
darling.
But it must have been, to sort of get back to Fawlty Towers, which is the television bit of this.
Yeah.
It must have been odd to be Prunella Scales, because she was playing Basil Fawlty's wife. She was playing John Cleese's wife.
Yeah.
But also in the cast was John Cleese's actual wife,
yes,
Connie Booth, who had co-written the scripts with John Cleese.
About to become his ex-wife.
Well, that's normally the case for most John Cleese wives, to be fair.
This is my current wife, he would say of Connie Booth.
But that must have been a slightly strange thing. But I mean, I suppose the thing we can all agree on here is her portrayal of Sybil Fawlty was peerless.
The thing is that it must be hard, because she was a good actor as well. She played lots of different roles before that. But
she got a BAFTA for playing the Queen in Alan Bennett's play.
She'd be a good Queen.
Question of Attribution. But I suppose the other thing that we could take away from this is, she must have played so many roles in her career. But a successful or a classic sitcom becomes inescapable. She becomes Sybil Fawlty, and in the obituary, Sybil Fawlty is front and centre of everything that people talk about. And how many weeks of her life would she have spent playing? They only did 2 series. Yeah. Each one is 6 episodes. Yeah. So it's a tiny slither of her life. and yet, I mean, it's not a bad thing. Who wouldn't want to be remembered for a performance as perfect as that? But that's what she's remembered for.
And the wider point is that these kind of comedies do make an impact on the consciousness
Yes.
in a way that many other genres don't. And I'm always going to bang that drum.
I agree. And John Cleese has paid a generous tribute. I'll read it out. He says, Prue was a really wonderful comic actress. I've recently been watching a number of clips of Fawlty Towers while researching a book. Scene after scene, she was absolutely perfect. Has to be said, that is John Cleese being more generous
I know,
to
and he
Prunella
hasn't
Scales than he is, for instance, to BBC executives.
Well, I was going to say, he hasn't slagged off the BBC in that tribute to Prue.
It may be that we've only got an edited version.
Maybe.
He may have gone on to say,
I think he's been quoted out of context
the
there.
idiocy of BBC executives who commissioned the programme, it turned out all right in the end. Right.
Okay.
Well, should we get an envelope and get on with things? Okay, Owen, here he comes with an envelope.
Okay.
I'm opening it.
How's the spelling this week?
The spelling's all right. Strictly Come Chat Showing are the words on it, which I think is about Claudia Winkleman, isn't it?
It's got to be.
Reportedly in talks with BBC to host a chat show once her time on Strictly comes to
She hasn't hung around.
Anybody would think this is a plan? Anybody would think it had all been planned in advance?
It segued from last week's news, which was what?
That was that she's leaving Strictly Come Dancing.
Yeah.
So a BBC source, I like the phrase a BBC source. That could be an official source, or it could be a person who works in a completely connected department.
Tomato and HP.
Well, a source is worth explaining this. A source generally means it's kind of the PR department have authorised this.
Okay.
An insider means somebody at the Daily Mail knows the phone number of somebody who works in BBC in Salford or whatever and just rings them up and says, have you got a view about Claudia Winkleman?
So what's the source said?
The source says there is a glitzy, super high-end show in the works for Claudia. It's Jonathan Ross-esque, but with the biggest stars and much more classy than Jonathan's.
Oh, nice.
Now, that's a very strange thing to say, while Jonathan is front and centre of celebrity traitors.
And he's doing really well.
Being an absolutely brilliant traitor. And I just want to say, Jonathan Ross is very classy. I don't really know what much more classy means, because you could build a more expensive set, but that might be slightly counterproductive. But other than that, it's kind of defined by the guests.
I mean, Graham Norton.
Guests.
Yes, and also she's there, isn't she, going to sit alongside Graham Norton, I guess, when he's not on?
Yes.
And then when Graham decides, you know what, I've had enough of this, maybe, sometime in the future, she's there to take up the baton. So
yeah, but there's an issue, because there's kind of a little bit of an issue there, because the show is going to be produced, we understand, by So Television.
That's interesting.
That's Graham Norton's company. And it'd be like saying, if you were the Rolling Stones, would you want your albums to have been released by a record company owned by the Beatles? Is that a good analogy? I don't know, but you see
what I'm... probably a terrible analogy.
Well,
but let's work with it for a while.
You see what I'm getting at there. In other words, so you've got the offices of So Television, run by our good friend and a very, very nice man, Graham Stewart. And so as you come through the front door of So Television, there's going to be a big poster kind of celebrating their biggest chat show. Mm-hmm. Who will be on the poster? Do you see what I'm getting at? Or do you have two exactly equally sized posters? But which one do you come to first in the corridor? These are little things that could make a big difference.
I'd say that Claudia, she's represented by a very impressive person called Holly Bott, who left a big agency called YMU. What does that stand for?
I don't know. They used to be called James Grant Management.
I know that, which is easier to pronounce than YMU.
But there wasn't anybody there called James Grant. So I can't remember.
But what is it? Is that a word? Is it YMU?
It's something like Yumi and
Yumi. It sounds like something you order in a Korean restaurant.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she left them and she set up on her own with very few clients. I think Gabby Loban is another one, Emma Barnett, a handful of female clients, and bizarrely a cafe in the East End. She's got I don't know why she represents them, but it's a brilliant cafe in the East End.
Seriously?
Yeah, A Felice.
Why does a cafe need an agent?
Well, I'm talking about them now, so obviously she's doing a good job.
So it's worked.
But Holly Bott, I think, her plan was to set up a small shop and to focus on her clients and grow them out and into different areas to kind of, to use their brand. And I have to say, Claudia Winkleman now is a brand. We say Claudia. We don't need to say Winkleman anymore.
Sure.
So I think that, this
But what you're talking about happened at YMU. That is the story of agents and agencies the world over. In other words, agencies develop a certain size, and then one of the clients thinks, I don't want to be represented by this big agency. And then one of the agents thinks, maybe I'll set up on my own, and they have a little discreet conversation. And so, the whole thing fragments, particularly when somebody buys an agency and thinks they've got a kind of secure business they generally don't have. And the sort of strange relationship between clients and their agents. A very well-known agent once said to me, never show your clients the swimming pool in your second home. And I thought, I think
good advice.
It's very good advice. In other words, or rather, never let them know that you've got a swimming pool in your second home, because that's when the clients start thinking, hang on a minute.
But didn't a very famous comedian have a similar attitude to you once?
We do. That's a rabbit hole we're not going to go down. Okay. I don't even know who you mean by that, Jimmy. So we're talking about Claudia Winkleman and her representation here, and that's one issue. But who produces the show? I guess it's fine that both shows will be produced by So Television.
I think it's brilliant.
They certainly know.
So.
Oh God, it's for So.
And
it's
for Graham,
fantastic.
because
it's
because he's like godfathering the show in a way. He's kind of giving it his blessing. I mean, Stephen Colbert did this in America. They launched a show off the back of Stephen Colbert called After Midnight, which is a kind of funny topical panel show. I know this because we were pitching to put Have I Got News for You in the same slot. I'm so glad we didn't now, seeing what's happened at CBS. But so these kind of big figures, they godfather, they exec produce the up and coming. So he's now got an interest in the up and coming. It's a kind of succession plan, isn't it?
I think that's fine, as long as I don't want to imply there's any problem here. At all. There probably isn't a problem. As long as Claudia's happy to be godfathered by Graham Norton as well. I remember when I was running Talk back in the 90s, and we sort of had this notion that, Mel Smith and Griff Rhys-Jones, my partners, that I would go out and try and find new young talent, and then Mel and Griff would be there to, if you like, godfather them, you could say.
Yes, but in the more gangstery way.
I did actually choose Mel Smith as a godfather to one of my children, but he didn't turn up to the christening. He was at the races.
A perfect spiritual advisor, I think, for your children, Mel Smith.
But the problem, so I can only use the example of Talkback. When we found, if you like, young talent like Steve Coogan and Armando Iannucci and people like that, they didn't want to be godfathered by Mel and Griff. Because it's just the way things are.
Yeah, it's get out of my way, old man.
Well, they didn't literally say that.
No, but they thought it, Peter.
They thought it. They didn't actually tell me. I just sensed it. So I think it's an interesting thing for these two chat shows to exist under the same roof, i.e. So Television. But So Television absolutely know what they're doing. They've got decades of experience of making great. And
how did she do when she did the standing?
I think she did very well.
Right, so they've auditioned. So because you can put bets on people as big as Claudia, and they can flop, Peter, can't they? When you commission them.
I know where you're going with this.
When you controller of BBC One and you think this can't go wrong at all.
There used to be an idea. This is a perfect example of the sort of outdated views that were conventional wisdom in television. For some reason, chat shows were a male domain. All the great chat show hosts, Michael Parkinson and Terry Wogan, Michael Aspel, and so on, they were all men. So I thought that was a ridiculous point of view. So when I was at the BBC, I thought I'll challenge this male hegemony of the chat show.
The patriarchy, the toxic masculinity.
My whole time at the BBC, basically challenging the patriarchy. Yes. As long as I was in charge, I was happy with that. So I commissioned a chat show from Davina McCall.
Perfect.
Which seemed
what could go wrong?
The chat show.
Okay.
And no, it seemed like a really logical thing to do. Davina was riding high then, like Claudia is riding high now. She's great. She's a wonderful, bundle of positive energy. She kind of, the audiences loved her. She was doing, I don't know what she was doing at the time, Big Brother, but probably about half a dozen shows because Davina was, was as hot. Well, you could say she was as hot then as Claudia Winkleman is now on television.
Just say Claudia. We all know who you mean.
Right, okay.
The Winkleman bit.
Davina was the Claudia of her age, if you like. And actually, even saying that's a bit unfair, Davina, she's still on television and she's still brilliant.
Yeah.
But she wasn't a great chat show host. And we found out. Well, I don't even want to say that. it didn't work for the audience is a different way of looking at it.
That's
I thought
not how they
I
wanted
didn't
to
watch
see
it and think, Davina, you don't know how to be a chat show
No, 'cause
host.
she's good at
She
talking.
asked questions and she listened to the answers, and she was very, very good and slick and professional.
Yeah.
All those things you'd expect it to be, but it somehow didn't work for the audience. And I remember it because it was one of my earlier commissions. I remember thinking, this is all my fault. I have actually done damage to Davina by commissioning a chat show from her. And whenever I bumped into her, ever since I was apologised for it and said, I'm really sorry I commissioned that chat show. Now, I don't think that tells you anything about anything other than that particular show, which is in the mid-2000s, and this is now 20 years later. But I suppose it does show chat shows hosted by people who are currently riding high on television in other sorts of shows don't necessarily work.
Well, I have one.
I mean, I think Claudia will work. I think she'll be
she's already done it.
Yeah, I think she'll be absolutely brilliant at it.
So we did it. We were when Anne Robinson was riding high on the weakest link and was the Queen of Mean. BBC asked us if we wanted to do a show with Anne, and we pitched this show. And I knew Anne. She's great, and she's very, very direct, and there's no kind of...
And she's much nicer in real life.
Oh, she's lovely.
She's lovely. The Queen of Mean is an act.
That was just an act. No, she's fantastic and super bright. And we developed the show, which we thought it was going to be like a Wednesday evening funny magazine show, but that's lifey, a bit of edge to it. And then it was decided, can we do it on a Friday, a half-hour show, and make it more topical? But a chat show with a topical element. I thought, well, okay, fine.
Well, this sounds a bit neither fish nor fowl to me.
So we launched this show called "What's the Problem?" with Anne Robinson. Well, it turns out everything.
Yes.
Not with Anne, but with the concept, and the problem was we couldn't get anybody to come on to be interviewed by her because she was the Queen of Mean. Because people have been seeing her being kind of comically rude to people, and so. We had to wheel on our friends like Kelvin Mackenzie. You don't want Kelvin Mackenzie on your chat show.
You don't want to put him anywhere near a camera.
Can we have a big pile of horse manure and just put it on the... It was he stunk the place out. And he's probably a very nice man and his family love him, but I couldn't...
I so hope he isn't a fan of our podcast.
He was the wrong choice because it was all very old journalists getting together and talking about the old days. So we were trying, and the booker, every chat show, as you know, has a celebrity booker, and they have contacts. And this poor booker was going through her contacts. And I'm in the production office one day, and it's kind of one of the kind of moments where you kind of feel you've hit rock bottom, because she's on the phone. She's saying, no, please, honestly, just tell him thank you very much for even considering it. We appreciate him even considering. I completely understand. He's very busy. No, thank you very much. Thank you. Puts the phone down and says to the office, well, that's a no from Bruno Brookes. And that's a no from Bruno Brookes for me.
Is a definition that your show's in trouble.
The moment I thought I might just jump off London Bridge at this point. And we couldn't book anybody. And in the end, it came and went. Yeah. And for those younger listeners, if we have any, Bruno Brookes was...
Not Brookes.
Sorry.
Bruno Brookes.
Bruno Brookes was... Actually, what was he?
He was a DJ. DJ on Radio 1. But do you know what?
I didn't even know who he was when he was.
His unique distinction is that he was the last person to interview John Lennon alive. He flew to... I think I'm right in saying he flew to New York, interviewed John Lennon at great length in the studio, got on a plane back with the tapes, and by the time he landed at Heathrow, John Lennon very sadly died.
Yeah.
So he had the exclusive of all exclusives.
Final interview.
That is literally the sum total of what I know about Bruno Brookes.
Interesting.
Other than how to pronounce his name.
He said politely.
So I go back to my point that a chat show, what's the most important thing about a chat show? The guests.
Yeah.
And of course, Graham Norton has been able to get the best possible guests, all the big Hollywood stars in town. And the guests have got, how many guests you get also relates to what size of audience you're going to deliver and who the audience are. And of course, chat shows, and I think, again, we've talked about this before, are affected by the existence of things like Amelia de Moldenberg and her kind of chicken shop chat, because that's another way of reaching audiences without going on mainstream television. Personally, I think Claudia will be brilliant. We wish her well.
Do you think she'd be more edgy than Graham?
Well,
how much edge these days can you put?
I think the great thing about Graham is in terms of how much edge, he's just got it perfectly right.
Yeah, no,
he doesn't make it. It is a cozy environment for celebrities, but he doesn't make it seem too cozy an environment.
And he's funny.
for celebrities.
Because we did a funny chat show back in the 90s with Clive Anderson.
You did?
Clive Anderson
Yes.
Talk Back.
And Clive was
Our
a
dear old
brilliant
friend.
chat show host, but once or twice the edge backfired.
It did, famously with the Bee Gees.
I know. Yes.
When I don't know where the research got, but
they were once called the Tossers.
Barry Gibb said one of our earlier names was Les Tosseurs.
Yes.
And Clive couldn't resist this because you know what he's like.
He's like, you can't resist a gag.
He's got a kind of, no filter, and he said, "Oh, you'll always be Tossers to me." And at that point, Barry Gibb said, "I've had enough of this bloke." And he got up and walked off. And his two brothers, Maurice and Robin, kind of looked a bit bewildered and followed Barry because he's the older brother.
They walked off in perfect harmony.
It's where sibling dynamics kick in. And Clive was left. I'm watching it. And Clive literally didn't know what to do. I mean, it was, of course, it was great for the chat show because.
Well, it was in the short term, wasn't it?
It was because he got poached then by Alan Yontop to go on to BBC One.
Oh, what? Because of the Bee Gees thing?
No, not because of the Bee Gees, but because his show was cool.
Yes.
Alan was cool.
Yeah.
He wanted the BBC to be cool.
It's funny though, because dare I say it, because he's one of our oldest and best friends. Clive's not cool, and he never has been.
No,
Clive does not.
He tucked his shirt into his pants.
We don't want to get into Clive's wardrobe.
but on that holiday we went on, we were all wearing our shirts outside our pants because we're old and we're trying to look cool, and we're wearing tight jeans and sneakers. And Clive comes out with his shirt tucked into his pants and all buttoned up.
Yeah.
But the truth is, in those days, he was a young man and he was doing a very sexy
and
show.
he was a brilliant
and fantastic.
And he's very, very funny.
And he went on to BBC One. And here's the problem: is that talk about changing channels as we did a few weeks ago. Is he was at the top of the charts on Channel 4.
Yes,
but then
he went to BBC One. Yeah.
And then that was the beginning of the end of that chat show.
So let's just say a bit more detail on the Strictly departure, because we talked about that last week, and we maybe slightly wrongly speculated it had been a carefully laid plan. But according to Deadline, the BBC were blindsided by the news.
Oh, they don't like that.
Which is why it wasn't until 2 hours after the announcement they released their own statement. And of course, we haven't had an immediate statement saying, here's taking over. But I can exclusively reveal that my hairdresser, Darren...
Well, there's no better source
tells
than
me he's a very
better
good
than
source.
the BBC source.
Because he also cuts the hair of a very of a well-known channel controller. I can't reveal the name.
A hairdresser source
I can't reveal the name. What is said in Harry's the Hairdresser
stays
in Harry's the Hairdresser. So I can't
apart
say...
from this podcast.
I can't say who else's hair he cuts, but he says with great confidence that Holly Willoughby will take over.
Holly Willoughby.
Yeah.
Well, I can see that.
So watch this space, and if it is Holly...
She's a kind of Tess Daly, though, isn't she?
If it is Holly, then Darren got there first. He'll be delighted to be mentioned on this podcast.
Who, Darren the hairdresser?
Darren the hairdresser, yeah.
You get a free haircut.
I think he'd like to be in showbiz.
You better get a move on because you're losing it.
He'd be good. He's quite cheap. There's not much to cut.
I wasn't going to say it looks like you got a cheap haircut, Peter, but you just confirmed it on this podcast. Should we move on before you start looking at my appearance? Having a go at me.
Never.
Okay.
I think we should get another envelope.
All right, Owen, wake up. Envelope me, Owen. Says Disney exits the TARDIS. Oh, we know what this is.
Yeah, we do.
The BBC have announced that Disney Plus will no longer be involved with with Doctor Who. Disney have partnered the BBC for the last 2 seasons, and the upcoming spin-off titled The War Between the Land and the Sea, which is not very Doctor Who-ish, but the co-pro, it doesn't seem to be working for Disney, and each episode now costs about £10 million an episode.
I don't believe that.
And the ratings have been, underwhelming on the BBC, and it hasn't been doing much business on Disney Plus, on their streaming services in the US. It's kind of flopped over there. Lindsay Salt, who is the head of drama at the BBC, thanked Disney. And the quote is, for being terrific global partners and collaborators over the past 2 seasons. Now, if you subtitle that, what she was saying would be, fuck, shittity, fuck.
That is like thanking the person you're about to get divorced for being an excellent wife
partner
for the last 50 years. It's the sort of thing John Cleese says.
Yeah, all the time. But it must be a bit of a torpedo it in the side of the ship here, because that's a big withdrawal of funding. But the BBC have confirmed the show will continue without Disney. And we'll go back to the Daleks, and we'll return with a Christmas special in 2026, written by Russell T Davies, who, as we know, famously revived it from being something that Michael Grade cancelled because he thought it looked so shoddy compared to the...
He didn't like it, Michael Grade. He put it in Room 101, didn't he?
He put it in Room 101. He got booed by the audience. And but he said, Paul Merton said, "Why did you cancel it?" He said, "Because it was rubbish."
Is it heretical to say I'm slightly with Michael Grade on this?
Well, no, all right.
It is heretical. It's been a brilliant show.
Let's unpack this thought, because I think when they revived it, we all went, "Really?" And then we saw it with Christopher Eccleston, and it was fantastic.
Yeah,
and I watched it with my kids who were in their late, 9, 10.
And then it got even better with David Tennant.
And David Tennant came along and just knocked it out the park, and it was a must-see event on Saturday evenings. And then it just kept going, and it kept the Doctor keeps regenerating. Clever format, because when the actor gets bored or gets a bit antsy, you can just regenerate them and turn them into something else. But the complaint is that, a lot of the press have said, maybe a bit right-wing press have jumped on it, saying one of the reasons is that Doctor Who's become very woke. And so they're playing around with it too much for the core audience. And it's kind of, the figures have gone down. The last episode of Doctor Who Season 5 aired in May with Ncuti Gatwa leaving the show and the Doctor regenerating into Billie Piper. Billie Piper's great.
She's great. She was with David Tennant, wasn't she? In the days when, you had the Doctor and then you had a kind of sidekick who
they were the perfect pair.
Who was a woman. But I don't know, when I was at the BBC, I've got to be honest.
Who was the Doctor Who when you were?
David Tennant. I think Chris Eccleston had gone by then.
Well, you were lucky.
Doctor Who was kind of like religion at the BBC. You criticise anything to do with it at your peril. And the reason was because it was getting to a younger audience. Not that much younger, not as young as you might think. I remember being shown research saying that the average age of Doctor Who to the mid-2000s was 43, which is not exactly the teen audience, because the overall BBC One audience average age was like 59. So, but then they're significantly younger. And then there was a sort of attempt to create a kind of wider Doctor Who universe. There were spin-offs being commissioned all over the place. There was Torchwood. Remember Torchwood?
I remember that.
Then there was the Sarah Jane Adventures, which was aimed more specifically at kids. And other things like that have gone on. And I can only say, which is, I know, Doctor Who at its best is absolutely fantastic, and Russell T Davies is a truly brilliant writer, but there was something about what surrounded Doctor Who that you couldn't regard it like you would other drama commissions.
You couldn't criticise it.
You sort of couldn't. And I can remember there was a hugely successful crime series at that time called New Tricks.
I remember.
And it was getting like 10 million viewers a week. But I was gently encouraged to decommission it in order, I think, to put the money into another Doctor Who spin-off in pursuit of this policy of saying, let's get to younger audiences. And kind of resisting it and saying, why would I decommission that? Because those 9 or 10 million viewers are loyal BBC license payers who love that show.
Because it wasn't cool.
And they're not cool and they're not young, but they've got a right to be entertained as much as this elusive audience that we're in search of kind of young, cool teenagers. So you're kind of aiming this thing possibly at a vanishing audience.
And it's slowly vanishing. The average overnights now are 2.3, consolidating. Overnights aren't the be-all and end-all anymore. We know that because of the streaming.
No, but they're a guide to what the eventual audience will be.
But it only consolidates to 3.8. And for context, the previous Tennant series in averaged 4.8 overnight, consolidating at 7.2. That's nearly half the audience.
Yes.
The Jodie Whittaker series in 2018 averaged 4.7. So that audience is dwindling. But the BBC have also invested massively in it in terms of the infrastructure in Cardiff. They built this huge studio.
Well, this is built by Bad Wolf, isn't it? Bad Wolf is an independent company run by Jane Tranter, who was the head of drama when I was at the BBC and was my colleague.
And who recommissioned Doctor Who.
Absolutely.
And now owns a production company that has the sole production contract. She has the production contract to do Doctor Who. So Listen, what I'm saying is that they are very vested in making it work because it's very enmeshed. You've got the studio, you've got Jane
Yeah,
Tranter
and the
in there.
BBC are
Bad
now
Wolf.
saying the Doctor Who's going nowhere. He will be back. She will
Yeah,
be
no,
back.
they're doubling down on it.
But without Disney, that's a huge slug of money you've got to replace.
It has become a bit like the furniture. And when you compare it with what Disney do on kind of like Mandalorian, which I'm not sure how much that costs, but can it cost more than £10 million an episode? It does look better. I mean, in terms of production value.
Yeah. But Disney themselves have been much criticised for remaking old Disney classics and giving them a kind of woke makeover, or what people perceive as that. In other words, you know, using them, if you like, as vehicles to preach to the world about how the world should be rather than how it is.
Do you think because you know you've commissioned it, you know what the audience is who watch Doctor Who, are they preoccupied with, you know, transgender rights and non-binary characters and diversity?
Well, I'm sure we're oversimplifying here, but I don't know.
No, but do they think about it a lot?
I mean, all right. Let's look at it from a personal point of view. When you and I were kids and we watched Doctor Who, what do we want? We want to be frightened.
Yeah.
It was terrifying. You know, Daleks. We would have nightmares thinking about Daleks, you know, exterminating us. I don't remember having any sense at all in which it was trying to shape my view of the world.
It didn't get into gender politics much.
It didn't. No.
It was either
we are talking about the 18th century here when we were kids. They certainly didn't have budgets of £10 million an episode.
And I've got to say, the earlier
£12 and 10 shillings.
The Christopher Eccleston, I remember, you know.
Oh, no, they're very, very good.
And George, who was my middle son, who was little at the time, but he would have to run out the room. I mean, he would run out the room when it got too scary.
Yeah, and that is one of its purposes. And you know, after Russell T Davies, other very distinguished writers took on the franchise. So Chris Chibnall, who made Broadchurch,
great writer.
Stephen Moffat,
yes,
you know,
genius.
Sherlock. So it's been in the hands of really brilliant writers, and you know, Russell T Davies is a brilliant showrunner. Jane Tranter, brilliant producer. But is it something that, however much the BBC want to say it's core to our mission, you know, as I say, it's a sort of religion, you can't actually stop it going down. Is that the case? I don't know.
Is it too big to fail?
Well, that we'll find out. But I can't imagine the BBC, if it's costing £10 million an episode and Disney are responsible for a large chunk of that, I can't imagine the BBC stepping in to cover that, unless they were doing so by cancelling a lot of other drama that people might like to watch. Just to pick up on your phrase there, too big to fail. We've talked before about the streaming services, who can be very brutal with non-commissions. Nothing's too big to fail. But I think the thing about Doctor Who, I think we talked last week about Strictly Come Dancing being a kind of talisman for the BBC. So when people criticise Strictly, they're criticising the BBC. But Doctor Who's another sort of talisman, isn't it? And so, as I say, for the last 20 years since it was brought back,
is it 20 years now?
Tell you a little story about the literal launch day of Doctor Who, the revived one with Christopher Eccleston. I'd been the controller of BBC One for about a month at the time, so I was very new to the job and new to the BBC. I'd never worked in the BBC in my life. And about 2 hours before it was launched, the former Prime Minister, James Callaghan, died. Remember James Callaghan?
Yeah.
Of course you do. But you need to be our age to remember him.
Yeah.
And the BBC News said, this is a major news event. We want to put out a special tribute to James Callaghan. We want you to delay the launch of Doctor Who. And I'm sitting at my desk thinking, I wasn't at my desk, it was on a Saturday afternoon, thinking, oh, what's the right and wrong of this? Is it Doctor Who launch or a special news programme about James Callaghan? And my scheduler, Liam Keelan, very nice man, from your neck of the woods.
Everton fan.
Liverpudlian.
Everton fan.
Said, I can't do a Liverpudlian accent.
Don't, please, Peter, I beg you, don't do a Liverpool accent. I'll have to thump you in the mouth.
He said, tell him to fuck off. About the BBC News.
Really?
He said, this is going to happen from time to time. There'll be some news story and the news guys come swinging down from the trees saying, suspend the schedule.
I know. What are they like?
And so that we can be, absolutely clear about what we're saying about Doctor Who, That relaunch in 2005 was an absolute triumph, and it got enormous audiences. And people who thought that it was
genius,
a creaky old thing with cardboard sets and no production values, were proved absolutely wrong.
I kind of wanted to be in the meeting where Russell T. I don't know who had the idea, whether it was Jane Tranter or Russell T. Davies or the pair of them, but it was a brilliant.
Yeah.
And risky. I mean,
yeah.
And so the BBC have to be applauded for taking a creative risk.
But that was 20 years ago.
And it's 20 years ago. And a bit like Strictly now, people are predicting the end. Is this the end of Strictly as Celebrity Trace has taken it over? But we'll see, because it's a format. And formats, as we know, we've dealt in formats. They can be revived by a change of
my
front person.
My prediction is Strictly will get good new hosts and sail on for a long time to come. I think Doctor Who's more problematical, but I think this is a bit of a hammer blow, isn't it?
You think the writing's on the wall?
Well, I don't know. We will find out.
I hope not.
I hope not. Well, that's all for this week. Thanks very much for listening. Are there any other questions about the world of television that you always want to ask? Do send them our way, and we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, send in an email, or you can get in touch via our socials, and the information's all in the description. So thanks for listening, and if you enjoyed the show, please do follow Insiders, the TV podcast, wherever you get your podcasts.
Or subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks for listening.